They were the perfect American family, Michael and Karen Ridley, and there for beautiful children, Emily, Jacob, Lily, and Max. Beloved in their small Washington town, admired by neighbors, untouched by scandal, until one spring morning, all 6 were found murdered, executed in their own home. No signs of forced entry, no obvious motive, just silence, blood, and one name echoing through the investigation. Daniel Ridley, the son Michael never talked about, forgotten by his father. Fueled by revenge, now responsible for what would become the worst family massacre in Washington state history. The Ridley family lived in the peaceful town of Tumwater, Washington, nestled between Olympia and the southern tip of Puget Sound. Their neighborhood, Pine Hollow Estates, was known for its quiet streets, well-manicured lawns, and friendly families. It was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked. Children played until dark, and community barbecues were held every summer. In the heart of it all was the Ridley home, a modest 2-story colonial with white shutters, blue siding, and a tire swing that hung from an old oak tree in the front yard. Michael Ridley was a 45-year-old high school science teacher known for his dedication to his students. He volunteered for after-school tutoring programs, organized science fairs, and once received a local teaching award. His wife, Karen, was a part-time employee at the Book Nook, a small independent bookstore in downtown Tumwater. She was known in the community for her kindness and always had a warm smile for customers. Together, they had 4 children: Emily, 17, Jacob, 14, Lily, 10, and Max, 6. Their lives revolved around school events, sports practices, and Sunday mornings at the local Unitarian church. From the outside, they looked like the embodiment of suburban bliss. Family photos lined the hallway of their home. Birthdays were celebrated with handmade cakes, and weekends were spent hiking or going to the movies. No one ever suspected that behind the smiles and normalcy, a dark storm was slowly brewing. On the morning of March 18th, everything changed. The sun rose over Pine Hollow Estates, casting a golden light on the rooftops. But the Ridley home remained eerily quiet. A mailman noticed that yesterday's mail hadn't been collected. Their neighbor, Mrs. Langley, a retired nurse who walked her dog every morning, grew concerned when she didn't see the Ridley children waiting for the school bus. At noon, she approached the house and knocked. No answer. She rang the doorbell. Still no response. Alarmed, she called the police to request a welfare check. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. They walked around the house, peering through windows. Nothing seemed out of place until one officer noticed what looked like a red smear on the inside of the glass door leading to the patio. With growing unease, they forced entry. What they found inside stunned even the most seasoned investigators. A member of the Ridley family was found dead in different rooms of the house. Michael was discovered in the study slumped over his desk. Karen was found in the kitchen near the sink, Emily in her bedroom, Jacob in the basement rec room, Lily in the upstairs hallway, and little Max curled up in a corner of the nursery. Each had been killed with precision. There was no sign of a struggle, no forced entry, no immediate indication of a motive. The Ridley Massacre, as it came to be called, was unlike anything the community had ever seen. A perfect family wiped out in a single night, and no one heard a thing. The town of Tumwater was plunged into fear and confusion. As forensic teams scoured the house, a disturbing pattern emerged. Each body showed signs of a single fatal injury: clean, deliberate, and efficient. No hesitation marks, no overkill. The killer had moved through the house with calm control, as if following a plan. Investigators ruled out murder-suicide quickly. None of the wounds were self-inflicted, and no weapons were found near the bodies. There was no sign of a break-in. All doors and windows were locked. The alarm system hadn't been triggered. There were no footprints in the yard, no tire tracks, and no signs of forced entry. It was as if the killer had appeared out of nowhere and vanished just as easily. However, one clue stood out. In the upstairs hallway bathroom, officers found a toilet bowl filled with cigarette butts soaked in bleach. It was an odd sight. Ridleys were non-smokers. No one in the household had any history of smoking. Bleach was also poured around the toilet seat and floor. Clearly an attempt to destroy DNA evidence. Forensic analysts collected the butts for testing, hoping to extract some viable DNA. Meanwhile, detectives began diving into the family's history. What they discovered deepened the mystery. 3 months earlier, Karen had filed a police report about a suspicious man parked near Lily's elementary school. She described a disheveled man with a long trench coat and a visible scar across his face. The man had been sitting in a rusted brown van watching the children. When officers arrived, the man was gone. The case was closed due to lack of evidence. In one of Emily's notebooks, investigators found a disturbing entry. "I think someone is following us. I see him when we drive home sometimes. He's always behind us." It was never reported in. Even more chilling clue emerged from Jacob's computer. In his internet history, there were several searches for how to tell if someone is watching your house. He had also bookmarked a subreddit for people who believed they were being stalked. He never told anyone what he had seen. It became clear that the Ridleys had sensed something wasn't right, but they hadn't realized how much danger they were truly in. Digging deeper into Michael Ridley's background, investigators made a stunning discovery. Before marrying Karen, Michael had a brief relationship in his early 20s with a woman named Diane Harper. That relationship produced a son, Daniel Ridley Wham Michael had abandoned shortly after birth. Daniel had been raised by his mother in various homes across the Pacific Northwest. He had a troubled childhood, marked by behavioral issues, multiple school suspensions, and eventually a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. At age 18, Daniel was arrested for assault. He spent time in a psychiatric facility, and later moved into state-run housing in Spokane. Records showed he hadn't held a job for more than a few weeks at a time. Social workers noted he displayed signs of deep abandonment, trauma, and resentment toward his father, who he referred to as the liar. Michael had tried, briefly, to reconnect with Daniel when he was in his early 20s, sending a few letters and a birthday card. But Daniel never responded, or so Michael thought. In reality, Daniel kept everything. He collected it all like evidence. A search warrant for Daniel's last known apartment revealed a deeply disturbing collection. The walls were covered in photographs of the Ridley family, some taken from public social media profiles, others clearly taken from a distance. One photo showed the children playing in their backyard. Another, zoomed in through a window, showed Karen doing dishes. Under Daniel's bed was a notebook titled Reckoning. Inside were pages of angry rants, drawings of the Ridley home layout, and chilling phrases like "they stole my life, and he chose them over me." Daniel was missing. Neighbors said he left a few weeks ago and hadn't returned. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed him purchasing bleach, gloves, and cigarettes. The evidence pointed to one terrifying conclusion: Daniel Ridley had returned to Anne. Anonymous tip led authorities to an old, abandoned hunting cabin in Grays Harbor County, nearly 2 hours away from Tombwater. The structure was deep in the woods, down a barely visible dirt path. Officers approached cautiously, fearing a standoff. Inside, the air was thick with decay and mildew. On the walls were more photos of the Ridley family, this time with red X marks over each face. A duffel bag contained knives, gloves, duct tape, and a detailed map of the Ridley home. Every room was labeled. Even the family's dog walking routine had been observed. In the corner of the cabin, detectives found a battered journal. The entries were increasingly erratic. March 1st. I've waited long enough. March 10th. The house breathes at night. I hear them through the walls. March 17th. Tomorrow. I erased the lie. Blood stains on a piece of torn cloth in the cabin. Tested positive for Daniel's DNA. There was also evidence that he had injured himself, or perhaps on one of the traps he set around the perimeter. But there was no sign of Daniel. The manhunt intensified. Roadblocks were set up across the county. Helicopters searched the forest. Residents were warned to stay indoors. Tips poured in from across the state, but Daniel remained one step ahead. Authorities feared he might strike again, but no one knew where he had gone or whether he was still alive. On April 12th, nearly a month after the massacre, a backpacker in the Olympic National Forest came across a decomposing body tangled in underbrush. The area was remote over 10 miles from the nearest trailhead. The body was identified as Daniel Ridley. An autopsy revealed he had died from blood loss, likely caused by an untreated leg wound. There were signs he had been crawling for days. With him was a spiral notebook, soaked from rain, with only a few legible pages. I did it. They laughed in my face. I made them listen. I thought it would fix me. Investigators believed Daniel tried to escape deeper into the forest after injuring himself, hoping to avoid capture, but he never made it. The Ridley family was laid to rest in a private ceremony. The town mourned. The house on Pine Hollow Drive was eventually demolished, placed by an empty lot and a small plaque honoring the victims. The story of the Ridley family remains one of the most chilling in Washington's history. A tragedy born not from sudden rage, but from years of silence, resentment, and a son who felt forgotten by the world. And though Daniel Ridley died alone in the woods, the echoes of what he did still haunt Tumwater to this day.